Here I am. I'm Melvin Brooks. I've come to stop the show. Mel Brooks has never been afraid of stirring the pot, whether through his fearless comedies or his outspoken reflections on Hollywood. But now, at an age where most would quietly enjoy their legacy, Brooks has surprised fans by admitting that his long career wasn't without conflict. In a rare moment of candid honesty, he revealed that there were actors with whom he had significant misunderstandings. The revelation immediately sparked curiosity. Not because Brooks is known for drama, but because he has always been regarded as a master collaborator. So why now? And what really happened behind the scenes? These revelations will shock you to the core. Mel Brooks's journey to Spaceballs. Mel Brooks, born Melvin James Kaminsky on June 28, 1926 in Brooklyn, New York, would go on to become one of the most important voices in American comedy. But his beginnings were far from glamorous. Growing up in a working-class family during the Great Depression, Brooks developed an early sense of humor as a way to deal with hardship and connect with those around him. Comedy became not just entertainment, but a survival tool, shaping the foundation of what would become his legendary career. His early life in Brooklyn instilled in him a resilience and sharp wit that later translated seamlessly into his work as a performer, writer, and director, ensuring that his humor always felt grounded in real experience. By 1944, Brooks's life took a dramatic turn as he served his country during World War II. From 1944 to 1946, he was a combat engineer in the U.S. Army, a role that placed him directly in the middle of war efforts. This experience not only gave him discipline, but also exposed him to some of the harshest realities of life. While he later used humor to parody conflict, such as in his satirical works, Brooks's military service gave him a first-hand understanding of war's seriousness. It's this duality, respect for the gravity of events, but also the ability to find laughter amidst difficulty that would define his comedic voice for decades to come. His military years provided him with perspective, shaping his ability to balance humor with substance. After leaving the Army, Brooks began his career in entertainment during the late 1940s and 1950s. First as a stand-up comic and then as a television writer. His big break came when he began working on Your Show of Shows with Sid Caesar. This program was one of television's earliest comedy landmarks, and it allowed Brooks to hone his timing, wit, and unique approach to comedy alongside other soon-to-be legends in the field. The environment was competitive yet creative, and it pushed Brooks to find his own voice in a landscape that was rapidly evolving with the advent of television. This period proved to be his training ground, giving him invaluable experience in crafting sketches, characters, and comedic dialogue that could appeal to wide audiences. It also showed him that he had the ability not only to write jokes, but to shape the rhythm and tone of entire productions. In 1961, Brooks co-created Get Smart with Buck Henry, and the series became an instant hit. The show cleverly combined elements of spy fiction with Brooks's sharp comedic style, offering audiences both satire and entertainment during a time when spy dramas like the James Bond films were dominating popular culture. Get Smart was more than just a parody. It was a cultural phenomenon, introducing memorable characters and witty catchphrases that remain recognizable even today. The show highlighted Brooks's knack for identifying trends and flipping them into comedy, a skill that became one of his trademarks throughout his career. Its success marked Brooks as someone who could innovate on both the small and big screens, giving him the confidence to pursue more ambitious projects. By 1967, Brooks had taken his career to the next level by stepping into the role of both writer and director for the film The Producers. This film, about a scheme to profit from a failing Broadway show, was daring in its premise and groundbreaking in its humor. While it initially stirred controversy for its boldness, it ultimately earned Brooks the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. The Producers not only launched Brooks as a force in film but also signaled a new era in comedy, one that was unafraid to challenge conventions, push boundaries, and tackle subjects considered taboo at the time. It was here that Brooks's genius for blending satire with storytelling truly came into its own, setting the stage for an era of innovative films that followed. The year 1974 marked a defining moment in Brooks's career with the release of two films that are still considered masterpieces of comedy: Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. Both films were not only critical successes, but also major box office hits, cementing Brooks's place as one of Hollywood's most daring comedic voices. Blazing Saddles pushed the boundaries of satire by tackling racism through humor in a way that was both shocking and insightful. It held a mirror to American society, using comedy to provoke thought and conversation about serious issues. Meanwhile, Young Frankenstein, a parody of classic horror films, became beloved for its clever writing, stellar performances, and affectionate homage to the genre it spoofed. To release two films of such caliber in the same year was a remarkable achievement, showcasing Brooks's creativity at its peak and demonstrating his to balance outrageous comedy with sophisticated storytelling. In 1977, Brooks continued his streak of parody with High Anxiety, a loving send-up of Alfred Hitchcock's suspense thrillers. Once again, he displayed his ability to study a genre, understand its mechanics, and then turn it into comedy without losing respect for the original material. While it may not have reached the iconic status of his 1974 releases, High Anxiety demonstrated Brooks's versatility and his willingness to challenge himself with new comedic styles. It was further proof of his talent for bridging the gap between satire and tribute, blending sharp humor with genuine appreciation for the works he parodied. The 1980s brought even more ambitious projects from Brooks, solidifying his reputation as a filmmaker who knew how to adapt to changing times. In 1981, he released History of the World Part 1, a film that showcased his trademark blend of historical parody and outrageous comedy. The movie took audiences on a satirical journey through different eras of human history, offering a series of sketches that highlighted Brooks's love of absurdity and his fearless approach to humor. Though critics were divided, audiences appreciated the sheer ambition of the project, and it has since gained a strong following. Later in the decade, he directed Spaceballs in 1987, a parody of science fiction and particularly the Star Wars franchise. Spaceballs became one of his most beloved works, appealing to both fans of sci-fi and comedy alike, and it remains a cultural reference point even today, quoted and celebrated across generations. Mel Brooks' biggest film controversies. Mel Brooks's career, while filled with groundbreaking successes, was not without its share of issues and controversies. His approach to comedy was often daring, unafraid to cross lines that many others in Hollywood would have avoided. This boldness became both a defining strength and a source of criticism. Audiences and critics alike often found themselves split. Some praised his sharp satire and originality, while others felt he took comedy too far. One of the earliest and most notable examples of this tension was the release of The Producers in 1967. The movie told the outrageous story of two men plotting to get rich by producing the worst Broadway musical they could possibly create, banking on its failure. Their chosen subject, a production called Springtime for Hitler, a musical that dared to present Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany in a comedic light. From its very premise, the film sparked immediate debate. The idea of turning one of history's darkest figures into the subject of humor was to many not only unthinkable, but deeply offensive. In the mid-1960s, the wounds of World War II were still fresh in the cultural memory. Veterans were alive who had fought against the Nazi regime, and survivors of the Holocaust were working to rebuild their lives. To present Hitler on stage, singing and dancing seemed like crossing a line that should never be crossed. Some studios even hesitated to release the film, fearing an angry public backlash or accusations of gross insensitivity. At that time, jokes involving Hitler or the horrors of the Holocaust were considered untouchable. By choosing to use them as the foundation for his comedy, Brooks placed himself squarely in the middle of a cultural debate about the boundaries of humor. The central question became, was it acceptable to laugh at such serious history, or did comedy diminish the memory of the pain and suffering caused by the Nazis? For some, the film's satire offered an innovative way of confronting the past, stripping Hitler of his menace by turning him into a ridiculous caricature. For others, no matter how clever the satire, there was something unsettling about making genocide and fascism the subject of entertainment. This clash of interpretations defined the film's initial reception and cemented its reputation as both daring and divisive. As the conversations grew louder, the controversy highlighted the risks Brooks was always willing to take in his career. While some critics denounced the film for being reckless, tasteless, and insensitive, others defended it as a stroke of brilliance. They argued that the producers exposed the absurdity of fascism by robbing it of any dignity, making Hitler laughable instead of fearsome. Brooks himself made his position clear. He believed that the best way to fight against evil was to ridicule it. In his eyes, laughter could be a weapon, one more powerful than silence because it stripped away fear. By mocking Hitler, Brooks felt he was diminishing the aura of terror that the dictator had once held. Yet, even with that defense, not everyone was persuaded. For some, the idea of seeing Hitler treated comedically was simply too much to accept. This divide in opinion meant that The Producers was not universally embraced when it was first released. Some audiences laughed while others walked away deeply uncomfortable. However, over time, recognition of the film's originality grew. It eventually became seen as a groundbreaking work that challenged conventional ideas of what comedy could address. The film even earned Brooks the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, a major achievement that signaled the industry was willing to acknowledge its brilliance despite the unease it stirred. That award, however, did not erase the memory of the hesitation and criticism that surrounded the movie's debut. Instead, it made clear that Brooks's career would never be free of controversy because he had no interest in playing it safe. He would continually push boundaries and spark conversations about what was acceptable material for humor. That same boldness reappeared in 1974 when Brooks released Blazing Saddles, a satirical western that tackled the subject of racism in America Heathen. The film became one of his most celebrated works, but it also remains one of his most controversial. Unlike The Producers, which shocked audiences with its choice of subject, Blazing Saddles shocked them with its raw and provocative language. The script featured the frequent use of the N-word and other racial epithets which made audiences sharply divided from the very beginning. Mel Brooks' comedic and political issues. Mel Brooks's career, marked by both groundbreaking achievements and controversial works, inevitably intersects with broader cultural debates about political correctness and freedom of expression. In recent years, Brooks has been outspoken about his perspective on the modern landscape of comedy. He has repeatedly voiced the belief that today's culture of political correctness has, in his view, restricted the creative freedom of comedians and filmmakers. Brooks has gone so far as to suggest that films like Blazing Saddles, which pushed the boundaries of satire and social commentary in the 1970s, could not be produced in the contemporary climate without significant alterations. In his words, political correctness represents the death of comedy, a phrase that has sparked discussion and disagreement across entertainment circles. Brooks's concern centers on the notion that humor must remain unafraid to tackle difficult, uncomfortable, or taboo subjects in order to serve its social function. From his perspective, comedy is at its most powerful when it challenges audiences, holds up a mirror to societal absurdities, and forces reflection through laughter. Blazing Saddles, with its exaggerated depiction of racism, exemplifies this philosophy. While the film's use of offensive language and social stereotypes was deliberate and designed to satirize bigotry, Brooks argues that such approaches would now be met with intense scrutiny or outright rejection. In his view, the restrictions imposed by political correctness risk limiting the range of topics that comedians can explore and could stifle the very kind of bold confrontational satire that defined much of his work.